Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to show you how to remove and replace the exhaust manifold on your Nissan Titan. We're making a huge upgrade on this vehicle by installing long tube headers from JBA Performance. They have an amazing reputation and we want to give a huge thank you to JBA for sending these our way. These are the 6400 SJT headers, full length with a titanium ceramic coat. So let's dive right in and get started. First thing we want to do is remove the inner fender, which is held on by a few screws and rivets. After that, you'll want to spray down the O2 sensor and the exhaust manifold nuts with PB Blaster. Allow the components to soak for as long as possible, preferably 30 minutes to an hour. This will make the removal much easier in the long run, and it's going to save you from a ton of unnecessary frustration. Next, remove the connector from the front O2 sensor. There is a tab on the back of the connector that you need to depress in order to remove. Using an O2 sensor socket, remove the O2 sensor from the exhaust manifold. Gently set the O2 sensor down if you're wanting to reuse it, as they can be extremely fragile. Next, on the passenger side, you need to remove the oil dipstick. There's a 10mm bolt holding it in place, which can quickly be removed with a 10mm socket. By pulling straight up, you'll be able to maneuver the dipstick out of the engine bay and place it to the side to reinstall later. Now here we are underneath the vehicle on the passenger side. There are two nuts that attach the intermediate pipe to the exhaust manifold. Again, spray those down with PB Blaster and allow them to set as long as possible. You'll also need to do the same with the O2 sensor as well. Please do yourself the favor and don't skip this step. Next, we need to loosen and remove those two bolts. After disconnecting the O2 sensor wire, remove the sensor using your O2 sensor socket and set gently to the side. Repeat that process on the driver's side. Spray down the two nuts with PB Blaster, as well as the O2 sensor. Loosen and remove the bolts and unscrew the O2 sensor, setting all of your components to the side to reinstall later. In order to remove the exhaust manifolds, we're going to have to move the exhaust back a couple of inches. The best way to do that is by using a ratchet strap. Attach one end to the frame and the other end to the exhaust. Ratchet the strap to bring the exhaust back a couple of inches. Back in the engine bay, we have to remove the two 17mm bolts that attach the engine mounts to the frame. Using a 17mm socket and a combination of extensions, you can reach these bolts from the top of the engine bay. You need to remove the bolts on both the passenger and driver's side. We also have to remove the 4 bolts that attach the mount to the engine. These are 14mm bolts, and you can see all 4 locations here. Remove these bolts again from both the passenger and driver's side. After removing those bolts, you'll need to raise the engine a couple of inches using a jack stand and a block of wood such as a 2x4. Place the wood on the jack stand and position it underneath the oil pan. The key here is to make sure all of the weight will be distributed evenly across the oil pan as you raise the engine. Now we can finally begin removing the bolts that hold the exhaust manifold to the engine. There are 8 bolts for each manifold. Using a combination of extensions and swivel sockets, begin removing the nuts from the middle of the manifold and work your way out. Please make sure that your socket is completely on the nuts or you'll wind up stripping them, which is going to be an absolute pain to remove. Don't do that to yourself. This is definitely going to take some creativity, as you'll need to use different angles and extensions to remove each nut. After removing all 8 nuts, the exhaust manifold can be maneuvered out of the engine bay and off of the bolts, down and out through the bottom. This will be the easiest way to get the manifold out of the engine bay. Here you can see the new manifold gaskets. Now just repeat the installation process in reverse by installing the new headers and tightening the 8 bolts. You'll also need to replace the engine mount bolts and reattach the dipstick to your engine. Back underneath the vehicle, we can reattach the rest of the exhaust to our new long tube headers, and our install will be complete. You can see the headers going up into the engine bay and the new hardware used to attach the exhaust. We really hope this video helped you with your own long tube header install, and we look forward to seeing you next time for another Titan Tutorials video.